Hey guys, wanted to talk about an email that I received the other day talking about the frustration of how our children interact with the other parent. One of the things that when we're going through this and we realize what's going on, one of the really frustrating parts about this is how our children don't see it. And I've talked about this before, but I wanted to talk about it, in specific, I guess, again. We can get really hurt when our children don't validate what we're going through. And what that means is when we think that they know, and more than likely, for the most part, our kids do know what's going on, but whenever they basically give a pass to their other parent, their mom or their dad, or whatever the situation is. And what happens is, we can be sitting there in this situation and we're dealing with all this turmoil. And this kind of dovetails with a lot of the other videos I've made, especially recently, where, we feel like the ex is getting away with everything. They're not being held accountable. And then we're seeing with our own children that they're not doing it either, right? And I've talked about this before in the fact that it's really tough for our children because they want to love the other parent. and that's really important to get our heads wrapped around because it's going to be a driving force from today going forward. Now, there is a point if the emotional abuse and the abuse towards our kids becomes significant enough to where they can't ignore it, they're going to ignore it. They're not going to want to deal with it. They're not going to want to listen to it. They're not going to want to hear us telling them about it. They're not going to want to hear us trying to make them feel guilty about it. And it's really hard. Guys, I can tell you, when this whole thing started and, the kids were basically good with me. Excuse me. And what I mean is when they would come over, they weren't completely angry at me. There was some anger, but it wasn't completely overt, right? But this is the scenario that as it unfolded early on. They would come over and they would spend a significant amount of time when they were with me. And at the beginning, it was a short amount of time, right? So it wasn't like it wasn't the 50-50 scenario. It was, every other weekend and maybe a couple of dinner visits. And even that got reduced at one point. It was weird. It got reduced, but then I got more time. It was the whole thing. The whole thing is just complicated. But my point is, the kids would come over and they would immediately be texting their mom. And you guys know where this is going. Because at the same time, when they're at their mom's for the majority of the time, and I would text them, they wouldn't respond. I would try to FaceTime them, or I would try to call. I didn't really necessarily try to call them, but try to connect with them, and it would be nothing. I would get no response. They wouldn't acknowledge the text. They wouldn't acknowledge anything. And it's really hurtful because you're dealing with this and you're trying to rationalize it in your own mind, right? And part of the problem at that particular time, at least for me, and more than likely this is happening with you as well, is you're trying to reconcile in your own head what's going on. You're trying to figure out what everything means and you're looking for things to validate your own view. And when your own kids are basically ignoring you, excuse me, but at the same time, they're not ignoring their mom, we're not in the position at that time to be able to take a step back and really see it for what it is. I know I wasn't, and I would venture to guess if you're going through this right now, you're not going to be able to do this either. And what I'm getting at is you really have to look at how your children interact with you when you are one-on-one. If they are loving towards you, they're affectionate towards you, and you're affectionate towards them, and there's decent communication, that's what you have to focus on. And guys, this is really tough because you have to ignore everything else, right? What I mean is if they come up and they go, "Hi, Daddy," and they give you a big hug, and they're happy, and they run off to their room to text their mom, it's it's not, they're not seeing it as a slight to you. Okay, so what I'm getting at is, if you take a step back, your relationship with your kids is probably okay, right? And you have to look for it. And the problem is that if you do anything and your frustration comes out and they think that things aren't so okay, then they're going to recoil back. And it's not necessarily, it's one of those things where you're kind of causing it. Well, you're not kind of causing it, you're actually causing it. And I say that coming from experience because I did the same thing. It's hard when you're going through this to not get upset, to not get frustrated, to not feel like your kids are rejecting you. But you have to look at what's going on and how they're actually interacting with you. Okay, and here's the deal. They're texting the other parent because in their mind that parent needs that connection to them, right? And for whatever reason, they feel more secure with you and they don't need to do it, okay? And conversely, more than likely what's happening, like in my situation, I wasn't beating them up on it. Now, I got advice from other people to say, turn off the network, take their devices away, don't let them do this, don't let them do that. And luckily, I didn't go down that road. I just sucked it up. I took the punches to the face, so to speak, and let them do it. Now, I will tell you guys, it hurt when they went to their moms, and I would hey guys, how's it going? And I wouldn't hear, for 3 days, or 3 days, whatever. I wouldn't hear anything from them. And then, they would come talk to me. Not come talk to me, but then they would have their time with me. And inevitably, in the beginning, I would say, "Hey, I tried to texted you. What happened?" Wasn't mad about it. I wasn't doing something stupid. And I'll give you an example of something stupid that my ex had done. My youngest daughter went up to my mom's back, a few years back, for one of the holidays. I think it was Easter, the Easter break. She was trying to text my youngest, and she didn't respond. So whenever she came back home and went, then I took her back to her mom's house, or the transition happened. Her mom was mad and basically grounded her and took her phone away because she didn't text her. And so I didn't do that, right? I was frustrated and it hurt my feelings, but I didn't tell him that. I didn't try to make him feel super guilty. I did bring it up from time to time, like, "Hey guys, I texted you, what happened?" And then they're like, "Oh, I didn't see it till later, and I didn't want to text you." It was like, and I didn't even at that point, I didn't see the real message behind it. And okay, so I'm talking in circles, so let me get to the point. The point is, your kids basically know that if they get caught at the other parent's house, at the narcissistic parent's house, trying to communicate with you, there's going to be a consequence. So they avoid the consequence because they're trying to keep their own nightmare of an environment as stable as possible. And they're not necessarily thinking about your feelings because, one, hopefully you're not making them feel guilty about it. You're not being cruel to them about it, and you're not punishing them for it. If you did, then they probably would. If they knew that if they didn't text you, that you were going to come back and make their life a living hell, they would probably do that. But you don't want to do that. You want to create an environment that they feel safe, that they feel that they can talk to you, and that that they know it's stable. Okay, so that's really the key of what you need to think about in this stuff, okay? And I get that it hurts. Whenever the kids aren't telling you what they're doing and they're, basically lie by omission, right? They're not telling you where they went. They're not telling you what they've done. You're trying to get a hold of them, whatever. That it's just, you need to give them that space. Now, I'm not saying don't try to get a hold of them, but you have to, if you send something out there and they don't respond, then they don't respond, As long as they're acting good with you, when they're with you, when you have your time, whatever it is, whether it's short, whether it's weekends, or whether it's 50-50, or whatever it is, focus on the real tangible relationship that you have with your kids. That is the critical part on that. That is what you need to focus on. That's what is important. And so, all right. Me saying this, is it going to make the hurt and the pain go away instantaneously? No, it's not. But what I will tell you is over the course of the period of time, for me, now the kids respond. I can call them. They will answer the phone if they can get to it, right? I mean, unless if they're with their mom, they obviously won't do that. But I can text them and they will answer. You know, those lines of communication have grown, and it's not a big deal. And I don't know whether I think part of it still is, you know, they're still trying to appease their mom. The other part is that they're getting older, and you know, I mean, they're texting their friends, so it's like it's easy to hide who they're texting to. You know, well, who, you know. Before, they didn't have a lot of friends, so it's like if they were texting somebody, they were either texting her, me, you know, or some immediate family. So don't take it personal, right? I mean, if your kids are with your ex and they're not immediately responding to you, which is exactly what happened with me, you know, take a step back and look at the whole picture of your relationship. I get it hurts. I get that it makes you feel like, you know, they're giving the other parent more attention, you know, but that's not really the case. They're giving the other parent, well, they are giving the other parent more attention, but they're doing it because they have to for their own survival. So, guys, this is a really tough situation, and it hurts, and it's not any fun, and it's not fair, and you're going to get these setbacks, and you're going to get these emotional triggers that happen, and it's normal, right? It shouldn't be normal, but it's normal, and it gets better, right? As you figure these things out, and you start adjusting your perspective, and you're getting a better view of what the reality of the situation is, it's going to calm you down, and it's going to give you some peace, and things start to fall into place. And before I close this video up, the one thing I just want to say is one of the biggest things for me, the biggest turning point for me, was deciding that I was tired of feeling that way. I was tired of constantly having the thought of my ex in my head. And once I hit that point, and once you hit that point, and you start realizing that it doesn't do anything good for you, and you're tired of being angry, and you're tired of being sad, and you're tired of being just drained, you get to the point where you make the decision where you can take a step back and realize that everything you're doing on that is it's not destroying. I guess destroying's not is a little too, it's too melodramatic of a word, but every time you do that, you're infecting your life and making things more complicated than they need to be. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. If you have some comments you want to add about how you're dealing with this with your kids, you know, feeling like they're siding more with the other parent and neglecting you, so to speak, you know, add it in the comments below. But when you do that, think about it is like, how are they interacting with you? When they are with you, do you get a sense that they feel safe and comfortable and that they love you and they care about you? And the beginning stages, that can be complicated because they could be angry and they could be fighting that. But if you can keep calm and you can build that environment, then that anger and that frustration will start to dissipate and things will get better. Okay, so on that, so that's if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel, please subscribe. And I will talk to you guys in the next video. So take care. Bye.